April 4th, 2022. Start with a roll call, please.
All right, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call. So we have Chair Moore, Vice Chair Six,
Here.
Board Member Anderson,
Here.
Board Member Black,
Here.
Board Member Noon,
Here.
and Board Member Olson,
Here.
and Board Member Whalen will be absent today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to public comment, I believe. So any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Moore. We did not receive any public comment slips, but we did receive written correspondence from Nancy Sawyers Cole, which was regarding a project not on today's agenda. So with that, I'll turn it over back to you.
Okay, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Move on to approval of the minutes from March 21st.
Move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you. I'll second that motion. Any discussion? No? Let's take a vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And, sorry, moving on to the consent calendar for March 28th. Possible to get those.
Second. Thank you, Chair Moore. The consent calendar for March 28th, we had 1150 San Roque Road. This was continued 1 week with comments. And then item B on that agenda, 212 West Figueroa. That project was scheduled for project design and final approval, and that was granted. PDA and final approval with comments. Item C, the last on the agenda, 915 North Milpitt Street was slated for project design and final approval, and that also received PDA and final approval with comments. Thank you.
Great.
Move we accept as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Six. Any discussion? Let's take a vote.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now April 4th, today's agenda.
Thank you, Chair Moore. On today's consent agenda, we had, why am I forgetting? I think 2 projects. 1150 San Roque was continued from the March 28th hearing, requesting project design and final approval, and that was granted today. PDA and final. Item B, the last one on the agenda today, 630 Garden Street, proposal for 19 data collector units located on city poles was also granted project design and final approval. And those were the only 2 items for the April 4th agenda. Thank you.
Move we accept as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Black, any discussion?
Under discussion, the second one was quite a few pole-mounted, particularly on, most of them on streetlights. They're these little, probably 24 by 36 solar panels, and then a smaller box on the other side of the pole. There's about 19 of them throughout the city. It verges on the side of visual pollution because there's so much there, but they did a very sensitive job of locating them. Their colors will match whatever pole they're on, and a lot of them are hidden entirely from public space, so they did a good job in minimizing the impact, so we felt that it was approvable.
Okay. Anything else? Let's vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, any announcements, requests by applicants for continuances, withdrawals, future agenda items, or appeals?
Oh, Chair Moore, there is discussion when we had consent today, whether it would be appropriate, obviously more convenient for consent members that have to drive down back and forth in that short period of time, to maintain consent on Zoom. Now, certainly would be more convenient. I don't know whether the outcome of them would be consistent with the full meeting because of the different venue, but it seems worth discussion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be a good way to take advantage of the technology that we've utilized up till today.
Yeah.
And for everyone's benefit. Obviously, it's.
Chair Moore, if I could respond to that. So I think I appreciate raising the issue, and I think staff can look into it so we can verify what our options might be and see if we would be able to accommodate that. So I will check back.
I guess the question now is, would any board member feel that that would not be an appropriate way to go with Zoom on consent?
I wouldn't have a problem, I mean, for the board members that feel that way, I mean, it's easy, it's a walk for me, so that it's not an inconvenience, but I would just want to make sure from staff that it allows the public the same access, if there's, that they don't have confusion on how they can, engage in the process. That would be my only concern.
Right, and that would be what we'd have to identify and make sure that it was open to the public and be able to support that.
Yeah.
Okay, we look forward to hearing about that next time. Okay, anything else, any other announcements from staff?
No further announcements, Chair Moore.
Any subcommittee reports? Then we can move on to first item. Come on up. Hopefully you have to bear with us. This is our first go around. So you sit there and you present with the screen. So it's like you're at home again, but you're here.
So yeah, typical PDF viewer, no unrolling the drawings. Zooming in does help. The board members have kind of limited screen in front of them.
Got it.
But yeah, your application materials are all there, so.
I also brought some additional photos. Can I share those as hard copies with the board?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Are they gonna be different than the photos that were submitted?
They are. There are additional photos. They're not replacements for those. Those are still valid.
Okay.
There are some additional photos.
I think that's fine.
Fine, I'm just gonna, your photos are right here, these are your
Got it.
plans, and then you can zoom in and out, or you could move to specific PDF page numbers.
Understood. Okay, great. Thank you.
And then just FYI too, the timeout has like a odd time situation, so just if it goes black, just shimmy the mouse, yeah. Cool.
Don't look at him all the time.
Right up here.
So welcome, your first guest here. So we have the timer there on the wall again. Introduce yourself and take us through the changes. So in here last.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Chair Moore, board members. My name's Noah Greer. I'm an architect, and I'm here with OnDesign Architects to talk about a project that's last before your board in September. So it's been a while. I'll try to fly through the sort of reminders about what the project is, and I'll start with the photos. Do we have the old photos that were submitted with the last?
No.
If not, I have hard copies of those that I think will help, and they can be looked at very quickly. This is just a reminder that the site is across from City College at Cliff and Loma Vista. It's multi-building student housing, primarily student housing, 95% plus students. And it's a mix of 1-story plus basement up to 3-story plus basement garage student housing project. And I'm sorry, I'll stop there actually. So these are the photos that were shared previously. The proposal is in general on the 3 southernmost buildings to demo the hip roofs, replace them, keeping the 8-foot plate on the uppermost story with a shed roof. The proposal we saw before, yes.
So I think it's
Thank
an
you.
adjustment. I think if you want to just indicate it on the screen with your mouse, that would be helpful.
Okay, let me get, I need to reorient myself as well. Okay, is the Zoom okay for your visibility?
Yeah, we have some hotkeys too, so like Z would be Zoom if you would like to use that.
Gotcha, thank you.
Can I interrupt, Chair Moore? Just, do we have the previous minutes?
We do.
If we look at them, and then perhaps address your presentation. Thank you.
I feel like we're on the cabin of the Enterprise. Say again? I feel like we're on the cabin of the Enterprise.
It feels like it, yes, yeah. Okay, this is what's up on screen, or the previous comments from the last review.
Thank you.
Okay. Can staff address item number 4?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In doing some research into the previous planning approvals for this project, I believe the most recent approval for the abatement of like removing trees and other site work was done in 2015, 2014. And I cannot find in any of the motions of the ABR that they spoke to the colors of the building. There's been a couple review after finals, and the only one that I found, and I do have the minutes, I believe, for your review as well, is from 2014, and it just stated that the colors match the existing buildings. So I don't really know, and I wasn't able to review the last ABR's comments as to what you really meant to confirm the color choices. So that's the research I was able to dig up, but it didn't really reveal too much. So
Okay. I think the intent was to try and confirm what colors are on the buildings now that we're looking at, if those were approved in any way officially previously.
and I looked for that, but I couldn't find anything that spoke to those colors being spoken to. So
Okay.
thank you.
And I'll throw in my 2 cents when I get there.
Great.
Okay, so
To add that we took, that interruption took about 3 minutes, so you.
Gotcha.
Can you-
Okay. Okay, so the project is, the shed roofs are intended to accommodate large solar arrays to offset the electrical usage on site. That's the primary goal. That's the reason for the whole project, really. The proposals for that new shed roof at a 2 and 12. The discussion that we had before, and I'll start, I'm sorry, let me start with the plan set. I need to reorient myself to this being in person as well. You can see in the site plan, we're talking about the projects, the southernmost 3 projects. One of the primary questions from your board is how visible are those buildings? Answer at the time was not extremely visible from my experience of driving Loma Vista. Now I'll be sharing photos starting down near the beach and then driving up the street, as you see here. The final 2 locations are from City College, which is at a substantially higher elevation. The lower building is 803, which we'll see first as we approach the City College Bridge. You can just barely see it in the distance there. It's the least visible building. It's a lower building and is substantially hidden by vegetation, but you can see some of the blue wall there. Then as we continue up the street, now you're beginning to see the middle building, the yellow building, 805. And now it's coming more into view. It's the most visible of the three structures. And although these are backlit, at the top right, you can see where you're directly across from that building. When you look up the hill, that northern elevation, northeastern elevation is visible. Okay. Continuing up Loma Vista, now looking back towards that same building 805. And then when we get to the retaining wall, the red, the uppermost building, is really barely visible at all. Now we're up on the City College campus. Granted, it's very backlit. At the top left here, this structure is not one of the three that's in scope. That's one of the existing three-story apartment buildings that's much higher in elevation. Our buildings, the red upper building is hidden behind the vegetation there largely. And then you can see the yellow building here, although I understand it's backlit. Because it was late in the day, that's the yellow 805 is more visible in this view here.
Could you zoom in on the left?
Yes, let's see. Gotcha. Oh, I'm sorry, left. So here is 805. And admittedly, it's more visible than I would have expected, but we're at a substantially higher location. Perched at the very edge of the parking lot.
Did I interrupt? If we're looking across there, do you think the top of that hipped roof would be about the same elevation as the top of your highest ridge of your shed?
Correct. In a general sense, they're just about the same elevation. And we can see them in the elevations. Bear that out. Okay. Then very quickly, one of the requests from our board was to bring in photos of the existing details that we're intending to reflect with the remodels of these units. All the other units have been remodeled with the clear anodized aluminum detailing, including aluminum railings, perforated aluminum window shades that you'll see in this first photo. A closer view of the perforated aluminum window shades and the aluminum windows. This view starting to show the use of horizontal corrugated metal trimmed out with this sort of boxy metal, and then the use of window boxes, and I have more photos of that here. And then these components are essentially mixed and matched on all of the buildings that have already been remodeled. The intention with the new unit, or with the new remodels, is to utilize the same language with the remodel. Okay. All right, now we'll very quickly flash through our plans. Okay, I'll use the 805 building as an example because the remodels are all generally the same. And then we can compare the elevations for them all. The floor plans, there really are no interior changes, so I'm not going to spend any time on the floor plans. Looking at the roof plans, here at the bottom right, you can see the hip roof arrangement simply going to a shed roof, 2 and 12. Okay, and then looking at the sections which really tell the story. Here on the right, you can see the existing section with the hip roof, and now going to a shed roof at 2 and 12. In this, board member 6, you had asked about the elevations. We'll see it in the elevations. In this case, it looks like with our bit large overhang here, we're just peeking over the top of what the existing max height was. And now we'll look at our elevations here. Okay, so on the right side, you can see our demo elevations. And then on the left, the proposed shed roofs, generally following the sloping of the site. Each of these 3 buildings are on in sloped locations where they have the additional basement garage parking. Okay.
Could you zoom in on?
Let's see, coming over here. So this is the primary addition.
If you wanna,
Mm-hmm.
the H, you can like move it around if you hit H.
Gotcha, okay,
It's like the hand tools, you can
got it,
pan.
thank you. So this is the first example elevation where previously we did not incorporate the detailing seen on those other buildings. And now for each of the buildings, I'll just very quickly show you an attempt to use that same language to add some interest to the new admittedly higher north-facing elevations that we end up with. This being building 805 at the middle.
And just to interrupt one more time, Control 0 takes you back to the full screen view, so if you want to.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, here on 803, this was a structure that was really a one-story elevation on the uphill northern side. Now it's using some of that ornamentation to help fill that elevation and speaking to the existing design language that's out here is the intent. Okay, and then lastly, looking at our largest building. Excuse me, 7. Okay. So here we are, I'll just focus on the front and the side elevations. This ornamentation was used on the other buildings in a way that was intended to bring some sort of movement to what are pretty standard boxy footprinted buildings. And so that at least was my intent in using some of the same language on these buildings. Okay. And then I'll say this building 807 is also an example of extending some clear story windows above that existing 8-foot plate, again to help fill that north-facing elevation and take advantage of some of that north light at the same time. Okay, at this point, I don't think we need to go over the details necessarily. Suffice to say that the intention behind the ornamentation is to match the existing detailing that's out there. And we can certainly look at those in detail for final when we get there. And lastly, there was a question about downspout locations. We did interact with Jim Rumbly at Creeks, and his request was simply that we ensure the new downspouts will land in planters before being conveyed, if needed, to the BMPs, to the permeable paving that we already have out there. And that, that is the intent, and the elevations now show the downspouts. And we'll include more detailing about that in our latter stages. Okay, with that said, I believe the last item from the minutes is to confirm the color choices. I was not involved in the site at that point. What I've been told by the site manager is that yes, in fact, those colors do match what was discussed. I was not able to find any documentation.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. We can open public comment for this item. Is anybody who'd like to address the board? Seeing no one. Did we receive any written?
Thank you, Chair Moore. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thanks.
So close public comment. Go to questions from the board. In the past, we just kind of picked one side and moved down the line. So, Mr. Olson, do you have any questions?
Yes. So you referenced that these additional details are matching those from a previous remodeling on the other units.
Correct.
When were those approved?
I don't know for a fact, Board Member Olson. My guesstimation would be between 6 and 8 years ago.
staff, do we have any reference material that could confirm that? Would that be possible to confirm that 6 or 8 years ago?
Confirm the permitting or,
Proposed detailed changes at that time?
we could pull the old set of plans. It would just be, as I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of permitting history with this. So we would kind of need to, I think it was either 2014 or 2016 when they came back in for those exterior changes and the tree removal. So I would probably check that PLN first, but it might be difficult to track down. And you're looking just to see what the design was before
Right.
today's.
Right.
Okay.
So if we're going to, at some time, try to pursue whether or not the color changes have been confirmed, is that where we would go back to that time, the 14 and 16 years?
Correct. And when I looked in the motion, I couldn't find any documentation of that discussion happening. And so maybe we could find some history on the plans just to confirm. But we can't do that, so.
That's all my questions.
Thank you. I had a quick question on the perforated sunscreens. Are those on every, I saw them on the photo, but are they on every window? And are they aesthetic, or are they, because, I mean, a lot of these buildings face north, so I didn't know that it was necessarily necessary. However, these do face a little bit to the east, so they get a little more exposure, but what,
Board Member Nunn, they are functionally purely aesthetic,
okay.
really. They just add some shadow lines to what otherwise is a very flat facade in the way that they exist. And of course, on a north-facing elevation, they're 100% aesthetic, just to give some movement to those flat facades.
Thank you.
Mr. Black?
I guess the only thing that came up for me, is there any other equipment associated with the solar panels that would have some visual impact? Are you doing battery storage cabinets or anything like that?
We're not intending battery storage or any sort of sizable, anything that would require enclosure. There is typically some infrastructure and some panels associated with the solar system that admittedly I'm not haven't located at this point in the project.
You anticipate that they're gonna have some visual impact
on? They certainly could if they were improperly placed. As you can see in this elevation, the sloping sides of the buildings are occasionally adjacent to a walkway, but more often have large planters there. So I think there are plenty of opportunities to hide those behind planting.
No other questions from me? Vice Chair Six?
Yes. Is this the same property and property owner? We had seen a landscape before and some troubled cypress planting. Is this the same one?
I believe it is.
Okay, so a question to staff. Can we have documented or requirement of this project linked to a mandatory monitoring and assessment of how those trees are doing? It was quite a concern that some of them were in poor shape, and we wanted to see a better monitoring plan. We couldn't formalize that, but it would be nice to write into our final approval here that the final drawings will require a city inspection or some kind of appropriate monitoring to see where those trees, which were significantly debated a long time ago, are indeed staying healthy and being monitored properly.
Chair Moore, through you to Vice Chair Six, I do know that this project, or that was an enforcement case that was litigated. I know that there's been quite a bit of oversight over that particular issue. So I would think that it's on a separate track and a separate review process from this. But you're right, that there's been a considerable amount of oversight, and I think that's continued.
All right, and then to the applicant, looking at the images of the previous, it looks like there is some logic to where the shadow boxes are and where the screen awnings are. For instance, here, obviously, you know, because this is tucked under the eave, that wouldn't need one, but, you know, on the new shed roof, those topmost windows are very high, and if we go to, I can't remember, well, let's see. I think there's some elevations where those topmost windows sometimes have awnings and sometimes don't. It seems almost arbitrary at points. Where would that be? Like on the south and east and west elevations, is that? Yeah, is that one right there? Yeah, so the left-hand one, looking at the screen, the left-hand one has one, but the other one doesn't. So, and then if we go to oh gosh, I can't remember where it was, but it was a south and east and west elevation. There was an arbitrary, you know, one of the windows in the aluminum vertical one of the windows at the end, there, that's it, yes, right there, bingo. Elevation 8 has no shadow box around that window within the horizontal siding, and then just right next to it, well, it's on the opposite end of the building, it has a shadow box. So I'm a little confused. It just seems a little arbitrary sometimes on when it is applied and when it isn't. Yes?
Board Member 6?
Yes.
I could try to find another adjective other than arbitrary. But admittedly, it's not a very formal, rigid use of these systems in each location. It is not.
Okay. Well, it would seem to me that in one elevation, for instance, in particular, this elevation up at 12, elevation 12, when they're so similar in size and location, that both of them would receive the same treatment.
And
A little less arbitrary.
thank you, Board Member 6. I do hear you. I think one of the thoughts that was in my mind is at times those shadow boxes can be quite heavy, perhaps especially on a 1.5-story elevation. Thinking in my mind was to keep them from reading too heavy, but looking at it now, I can certainly see where you're coming from.
Well, I don't think 11 and 8 are on opposite ends of the building, so I don't think it matters that much there, but maybe like on 12, on the clear story window, flanking, well, you see where I
Understood.
And then the other one has a shadow box below it, and one has an awning, so it just seems like the images of the prior project had a little more consistency, so a subtle thing, but in my mind, to be a little more consistent within each elevation would help. Very subtle, but that's my comment.
Okay, Ms. Anderson?
Are you replacing all the doors and windows, or are we leaving those the same?
Replacing doors and windows with the intention to match the look and feel of the existing remodeled aluminum frame windows to the extent possible.
Let's do this one.
Okay. And I guess this is more to the board members. I don't know if I can ask, has that been approved, like those remodels? Or they can't ask about that? Never mind. Okay, my questions have been asked.
Okay. Just have a couple follow-up questions. So on elevation 12 on the screen here, do those, and then as the metal material approaches the corner, is that miter and turn the corner, or is it two separate boxes, like two separate like jams that it comes through? Single one? How's that?
I believe there's a mix of both on the site. And so I think in looking at elevation 12, you can see the jam. And then that wraps the corner from here. Yes. So I believe I did this at each of the corner conditions, that we essentially box it out. Because the corrugation is actually quite deep. It's 1.5 or 2-inch corrugation that's been used out there.
Okay. And this is a system, a facade system?
It is, yes.
Okay. The question of the roof slope itself, you're showing a 2 and 12 roof. And I understand they're trying to approach an angle for solar capture. Are the panels not still going to be on some sort of rack that increases the angle?
They will still be on some sort of an armature because we're trying to keep it as low as possible. And they will have some additional angle.
When you say trying to keep it as low as possible, is that a driver of this particular roof slope? And did you look at a reduced slope, like a 1 and 12?
We did. I say it's the primary driver of it came from the solar installer who recommended a 2 and 12 min roof. Secondarily, it also simplifies waterproofing, quite frankly, for the system. That's from the contractor, from the roofing contractor. So those were really our primary drivers to go to with the 2 and 12.
Is it a PVC roof underneath?
We're not spec'd yet. Trying to sort that out.
Anything else before we go to comments? No? Let's go to comments from the board. And if we could have that previous motion up as well, just to refer back to as well as comments. Mr. Olson, do you want to start?
Yes, I would like to see the conditions. Isn't that what you asked for?
The previous motion.
Yes. I'd like to look at those before I. Thank you. So, I have some doubts as to whether or not the colors have been approved by this board. And I would withhold my approval of the project until we had determined whether either they have been approved by this board or that we resubmitted and then approved by this board. On this particular one, this seems to me to be a unique use of the colors. I don't find it similar in any of the other buildings. It seems to me like this might be a newer concept of painting this building, and so it further supports my idea that perhaps we should look at the color again as a board. Those are all my comments.
Okay. I think it would be helpful for the applicant if the colors were found not to be an issue. Do you have any comments that regarding the proposal in front of us as far as roof slope
I
details? Okay.
comments except to say that as it's presented now, just if we're just addressing the shed roofs and solar panels, I have no objections to what's being proposed.
Mr. Six?
Well, I think I resonated with your question, Chair Moore, on if you go with a PVC roof, it would be nice to get this down to 1.5. And I think you'll be able to make that decision before final.
Yes.
So I think it would look a lot more handsome and reduce the tall elevation. You better looking, if the, it sounds like the solar panels are gonna sawtooth no matter what the pitch is. So I would think the lower one would be better, and I think I previously talked about applying the shadow box and the metal awning a little bit more consistently within each elevation. Those, and I do share the concern. I guess I missed what the proposed colors will be.
Board Member 6, no change to the proposed colors.
Okay.
Existing colors remain.
So I would have, I resonate with Mr. Olson that the colors are a bit too harsh, vivid on the existing building. And I'd like to see further study on those colors.
Okay. Ms. Anderson?
No comment.
My own comments are similar to Vice Chair Six. It'd be nice if that roof slope could be reduced. I think that would help improve proportions, particularly on the hillside of the building. And I think the proposed detailing is fine. It's playful. It's unique. It kind of brings the entire development into a similar appearance. So I don't have any issues with those. And whether some windows have awnings and some don't, I think that's part of the design flexibility. So the project is here for project design approval. However, there's some concern from some board members regarding other permitted work on the parcel. I don't know that should impact this scope, so I'm looking for some feedback from staff.
If I may, Chair Moore, given the proposal in front of you, I think if the board was comfortable making project design approval, then I think that can happen. In the meantime, I would suggest that staff will pull the plans that were approved from either 2014 or 2016 to see what colors were listed there, to see if we can find any more information. I'm guessing that will illuminate what colors were approved at ABR if they weren't included in the original minutes, and then the applicant could come back for final approval, and we would have more information at that time, and we would be able to work with the applicant if those colors that are currently existing on site were not approved by this board, and then they could make suggestions. So perhaps it might be valuable if there are comments from the board about colors, if that's helpful to the applicant to hear in case there is a discrepancy between what's on site. That might be my suggestion.
Okay. Does that alleviate some concerns regarding colors?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to add any other comments then? Or do any other board members want to add any comments?
Well, I would agree with Mr. Six. I'm not so sure that harsh is the word I would use for the description of colors, but I do think they could stand some muting, and that I would rather see them not in the primary range.
It's a much nicer word, way to put it.
Okay,
So,
anything else?
I just wanted to, maybe as the board, if we could as a board, give the applicant a little more direction on the slope. Obviously, if it's a membrane roof, it can be reduced. If it's another option that he's considering, it doesn't allow it. But I don't know what else there is within 212 that is out there. So do we want to give him more direction that we don't want a 212, or is that not acceptable?
Well, I think at this point, we don't wanna tell him to study alternate roof slopes. If we're gonna give him a project design approval at this point, we have to give him pretty firm direction.
Okay.
So, I think, in my opinion, the project's ready for project design approval, but I think we could do a straw vote from the board members and see who's thinking the same thing, and then we can craft a motion based on that.
Okay.
So, let's take a straw vote. How many board members feel the project is ready for project design? That's everybody. Great. Okay, so a motion. So I'll make a motion for project design approval with the following comments. That number one, the board appreciates the owner's efforts to incorporate solar design into this project and update the building's appearance. Number two, that the applicant shall reduce the slope of the roof to the greatest extent possible in order to reduce the overall height of the building and to reduce the clear story element on the northern elevations. The exterior detailing as proposed is acceptable. To assuming that, how do we describe the color issue? The board prefers a more muted color palette than is currently, or than currently exists on site. That's pretty much it. Okay.
Chair Mark, can we also have you go through the, thank you.
Mr. Olson, go ahead.
Would you consider adding some reference to the staff's commitment to research the colors in previous submittals?
Sure. And then lastly, the board understands that the staff will provide research regarding previous permits on the property.
On the color.
Before final approval is given.
Let's just say at the next design review hearing for this project. Okay. Okay, so I can make the project compatibility findings as the project is consistent with the design guidelines due to its location in the city and the surrounding buildings having similar detailing. It is compatible with the architectural character of the city and neighborhood as it is using the same details and similar colors to the adjacent buildings. Number three, in general, the project size, mass, bulk, and height is appropriate for the location and its neighborhood. Number four, we're not aware of any adjacent landmarks or historic resources. Number five, it does not impact any established scenic public vistas. And is not, number 6, it is not changing the amount of open space or landscape.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Okay, let's vote.
Could we hear the motion, please?
Oh, yes, let's read the motion.
Yes, thank you. I'll go ahead and read it back. So the motion is for project design approval with the following comments. Number 1, the board appreciates the efforts to incorporate solar design into the project. Number 2, the applicant shall reduce the slope of the roof to the greatest extent possible in order to reduce the overall height of the building and reduce the clear story element on the northern elevation. Number 3, the exterior detailing as proposed is acceptable. Number 4, the board prefers a more muted color palette than what currently exists on site. Number 5, the board understands that staff will provide research on the colors from the previous submittal at the next hearing for this project. And number 6, the board made the compatibility analysis findings with A through F met.
On number 5, actually, the board understands that staff will provide additional information regarding past permits on the property, specifically regarding color and detailing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think that the motion as read dropped out your compliment on their efforts to improve the looks of the buildings.
Yeah.
So
Number 1, after the solar, second sentence would be, the board appreciates the owner's desire to improve the appearance of these buildings.
our compliments are so rare that we should not drop them out.
Second. Okay, is that satisfactory?
Yes.
Let's vote.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We can use a little bit of an orientation
Yes.
for the applicants.
Yeah. So Ms. Jones, we're gonna be having applicants present from the laptop.
Great.
And I can kind of just show you some quick tips.
Yeah, I think our architect will just run
Oh,
it.
wonderful, okay. Feel free to sit. So you'll just have PDFs of the most recent submittal, and then what we noticed, you guys had, and we forgot to check too, that the landscape plan from the 14th of March didn't make it on the most recent submittal in March, so you'll have to swap
To get to the landscape.
to get to the
sheet, just go
landscape
there.
sheet. Yeah, so the Z, if you just hit Z, you would be able to zoom in.
Okay.
H, you can kind of pan around, and then Control 0 takes you back to the screen.
And does it zoom in like this too, or no?
If you hold Control,
Perfect.
yeah, and then you can maybe just stay on that hand.
Super.
And then if you wanted to pull up a tab on the side, see what other sheets, you can use that page layout tool as well.
Okay.
And I think, if you have any questions, yeah, pretty straightforward.
Super, thank you.
Of course.
Okay, if we're ready. This is item number 2. It's 210 South Voluntario Street. It's here for final approval. This is proposed tenant improvement for the existing commercial building. Project includes renovations to the building, reconfiguration of the parking lot, new landscaping, and new outdoor patio area. Project requests consideration of alternative landscape design to provide relief for existing site constraints. The project requires planning commission approval of coastal development. I don't think this is the correct.
Oh, yeah.
sorry, Chair Moore. This is the incorrect description. I can pull up the agenda with the correct description.
It is the correct address. Strangely. All right, well, I have it here. So the project consists of demolition of existing single-family residence and garage and construction of a new multi-family residential development. The new development will include 9 rental housing units pursuant to the AUT program and the state's density bonus program. And one of the units will be designated as very low income. The average unit size would be approximately 612 square feet, 5 on-site parking spaces, including 1 handicap space, and 9 long-term bicycle storage spaces are proposed. Parcel is zoned RM and its general plan designation is medium density residential, 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre. Proposed density would be 36 dwelling units per acre, which is allowable with the state's density bonus program. Final approval is requested and the project requires compliance with the plans granted project design approval on January 10th of this year. If we could have our motion from the last time. So, PDA, continue indefinitely. Slider windows shall be changed to awning windows. Plan shall reflect the updated bicycle parking plan. And then we made the project compatibility analysis. There was nothing out of the ordinary there. Okay, so, welcome back. If you could focus on those elements and just do a run through of your materials board and detailing. Kind of focus in on the final aspects.
Sounds great. Dylan Chappelle, architect for the project. Thank you for having us. So I will just jump right to that because I think we're all relatively familiar with the project. And go from there. We, so the minor updates this last meeting, we stacked a few more bikes in the back. You can see the cursor back here. We have 2 bikes located here, and then there are 7 back there. There was a comment on the essentially no slider windows. So the sliders are now called out as awning windows, and we can look at that in the window and door schedule also on the elevations, but I don't think the elevations really have changed since the previous meeting. And sorry, this is the first page of details, but it's
Just if you zoom out and then back in, it'll refresh it. There's the plus minus. Oops.
It's not loading.
as you can see, we went very simple design details.
We're painting the building all white.
I could jump to this page at the moment. This is just some of our standard stair outlookers, typical. This is
Can you zoom in on that?
sorry. It doesn't,
Maybe just use the plus minus.
doesn't that.
If it's, we can take the controls back if that is not working very well.
Well, we can try.
Are they saying it's my driving? Is that?
Here.
If you would like to go, feel free if you think that'll work
Sure,
better.
and you know what, it's the same controls, so I can just kind of do that, give you the keyboard and mouse. If I request them back. So you won't, the board unfortunately will have to swap to my display, but you will not be able to see them on those.
Okay, that's fine. I think I can do this. Good, we got this. There it
Apologize,
is.
This is our trial, initial day doing this, so it's all.
You all are all guinea pigs.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay. Here's that first page of details that did not load. We have some typical eaves and outlookers. If you look throughout the plans, you know, we have some decent sized outlookers and details throughout. Right here, I'm sort of focusing on 15. This is our typical window and door trim detail. You can see we have some inset windows and doors. The main materials are gonna be siding, and then there is some stone near the trash enclosure. Zoom out a little bit. So those just go through there. This is our dark sky compliant exterior sconce. This is a typical roof eave over the entry doors. And then our stair and guardrail details for the stairing and the balconies that wrap around the building. Details, this window and door schedule, this is where you see the awning windows called out. There's no sliders. And I think, was there one other item that we wanted to?
Colorboard.
What?
Colorboard.
Color board? Is that gonna be in this?
I do have, from your, March 14th submittal, it's that far right PDF.
There we
was
go.
that-
Here's the color material board. We have white exterior trim, Certainty presidential shake roof, the lighting fixture I showed you. This obviously is not the greatest representation, but that's a Cabot chestnut brown stain. We have a standing seam roof. This is just over those entry roofs that was in the detail. And then the hardy lap siding and hardy shingles. Essentially, we went with two similar colors, one lighter and darker, for each. So I believe the greens go on the green building and the blues go on the blue building. Anderson, just white windows and doors matching the trim, and then in the areas where stone, it's gonna be actual sandstone veneer.
That plan set to the right of this one was the one you were just managing.
Okay, thank you.
And then the one, second to last one would be the one with the landscape.
With the landscape.
Yeah, and I think that would be 31.
Okay, so you can see kind of the colors a little bit better here. There's the colors. And then consultant drawings, I'm just gonna kind of click through those unless you guys have any specific questions.
Just the landscape.
And then I don't believe the landscape has really changed since the last presentation that you saw. Just the one additional bike parking space over here, and then the two that are here.
Feel free to keep.
Okay.
Great, does that conclude your presentation?
That concludes, thank you.
So we can open public comment. Is anyone in the audience here to address the board regarding this project? No? Okay, did we receive any written public comment?
Thank you, Chair Moore. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item.
Thank you. We'll close public comment. Go to questions, starting with Ms. Anderson.
No questions.
Vice Chair Six.
Yes, can we do a quick review of the exterior lighting as we need to
So,
approve the lighting guidelines?
So a plan showing locations.
And it's just the one fixture, correct, all throughout?
You can also, pardon my interruption, you can click on the number, the PD to the right, and then just type in a lower number
page.
rather than going through every
Okay.
single one, if that's easier.
Let me see where we have that called out. Floor lighting plan. So he's got some fixtures located throughout. And then, so first and second floor. They're probably a little hard to see, but I think you're seeing them there.
So if you can zoom in there, that'd be helpful.
Different keyboard.
No, bear with me, sorry, you guys.
You're doing great, yeah.
Boom, 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 you see them called out throughout.
So that's the second floor
Sorry.
Walkway?
Yep, that's the balcony around the second floor and the second floor stairs. This is the walkway, the entry to the second floor of the building in the front. And then you can see them called, shown and located around. And then same thing here. And then that is the same fixture throughout.
So, question, LED, 8 watt, is that a pretty low? Seems like there's a lot of responses from a plan. I don't know whether, I can't relate to the new.
That's calling it out as a 1 to 8 watt.
So what does that mean?
I think 8 is probably not where we would want it set, but somewhere in there. That's-
I can't remember what the equivalent is in non-LED.
We're here for final?
Yep. Any questions?
No, just one comment.
Questions? Quick question, is there a irrigation plan associated with the set?
There is.
Okay, my question is, just as I always ask, where the backflow preventer is and would it be properly screened? Or is it in a place where it could be seen? Do we know?
And I'm sorry, could you please approach the chair so our microphones can pick up?
I will, which one of these
Correct.
am I think it's that one?
Yeah. It starts on 32.
32?
I believe that's, yes.
And then the irrigation is,
Next, 33.
okay.
So the backflow is, you can kind of see it, David, right off the street, off the sidewalk.
Okay,
Um,
and what sort of plant material do you have in that area to screen it?
And the planting, I believe, just check the plant, it's the, just double check the planting on that one. I believe it was the Anaxanthus or the, just double check.
Lamondra?
Oh yeah, the Lomandra breeze, which you
Okay,
can get like up to 3 feet.
yeah, okay. Great, that's all, thank
So
you.
just to confirm, you were asking about the fire backflow or the?
No, the irrigation. That's why I asked about the irrigation
That
plan.
looked like the image for the fire.
That's fire right there.
Is that fire? Where's your irrigation backflow?
Diagrammatically, it's
So the
right,
diagram,
That's it.
yeah, so then it would be,
right in the middle of the sidewalk.
it would be in that planter
Which one?
adjacent to it, for the
There.
fire hydrant.
Up above.
Are you, I'm sorry, I have the mouse, do you want me to move it?
Yeah, why would, I was gonna put it just diagrammatically, it's seen in the sidewalk and just,
Just- Use the mouse.
Oh, okay, right there, sorry.
and put it in this planter with, and then Lomandra breeze all around.
Got it. Okay. My only question.
Questions down here?
Can we go to one of the elevations? I think it was maybe sheet 383.
Third one. Yeah, that one.
This one?
Next one over.
Sorry.
Yeah,
No,
sorry.
Got it this time. There you go.
The top right. Just wondering if myself and then the board's opinion of the height of that awning. Is it that high for a reason?
Are you talking about this entry awning
Yes.
right here?
Maybe, I mean, am I,
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
It's a little high. Is there a functional reason why that high?
No, I think I was just lining it up with some of the materials and that kind of belly band, but
the approach is front, you don't have a clearance issue from a side approach to the building and clear, 80 inches clear?
no, that is a tightish walkway, but I think it's fine, but I mean, yeah, if you think it should be a little lower,
I
that
mean,
Good catch.
yeah, I would,
Yeah.
it looks like it could drop a little.
it looks like the kind of cross beam is about at 10 feet and then the knee braces stick down below that.
Yeah, if you can get the clearance for the approach,
About a foot lower.
yeah, I would lower.
Put in an 8-foot door.
Do you have others like that?
Yeah.
Yes, that's consistent.
So there's similar positioning of others like that, correct?
Let's go to here.
Yeah.
So those, if you want all those to drop a
Yeah.
foot,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a problem.
Good catch.
Okay, there's my question and comment.
Okay, no questions.
I don't have any questions. Before we jump into comments, is staff able to, if we drop entry canopies awnings 12 inches, is that something that staff can review?
Include that as like a condition, and then when we review it in the building stage, they would
Okay.
verify that.
Ms. Anderson, do you want to start with comments, if you have any?
No, I think it's ready for final.
I think it's a very nicely detailed plan, a detailed building. Just one little caveat, I can't leave anything alone. If you drop down to the south elevation. Yeah, or the rock lintel that you have above that would be, I think would be a lot more logical if you just brought your shingles down to the top of that door or some wood trim that,
That's beyond the
Yeah.
trash enclosure.
no, it isn't. It's in line with it.
In line, you're talking about this area
Yeah.
right here,
Yeah,
and if I just drop the rock down to, so
Just-
there's no
just-
rock above the
just
door?
above the door. I think a rock lintel that long is kind of awkward looking. It screams of, veneer. And rock wouldn't behave itself like that, so I would drop it. I would keep your rock as high as you have it on the other side, but eliminate it just above the door. Just, I think, a non-binding comment.
Okay. Yeah, maybe do the same thing. This one's a little bit
Yeah, that
more
one makes
believable, but,
sense,
yeah.
but, just after the turn of the corner for that 8 inches, stay at the same height, but then drop it down above the door.
Okay.
And probably struggle with eliminating it in the inside corner on the other side. It's up to you. I would eliminate that.
Anything else?
Nope, I think it's well designed.
Mr. Black, any comments?
I'd agree with those comments, yeah. That's all.
Mr. New?
No additional?
Olson?
I agree also with the comments. I'll support the comment that this is well developed and nicely detailed and a handsome project. And I also support the omission of the rock lintel over the garage doors.
I forgot something. I just would, another non-binding one is to check the illumination of your sconces. There seems like a lot of sconces, and if they're very dim, that's good. If they're very bright, then perhaps want to look at that.
Okay.
Have it more manageable, less light.
Okay.
But that again would be a non-binding.
Do you convert that into a motion?
Absolutely.
Pardon my interruption, Chair Moore to Vice Chair Six. Can staff request an additional comment as well that the landscape plan be included on the final approval drawings as well? Thank you.
So what is this here? See, that's why we need some kind of,
It's fine.
for final only? Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
I
fine.
would move, I would make a motion that this project be granted final approval with the following comments, that a 4 independent awnings above the entry doors on the south elevations be dropped to, for approximately 1 foot. Yeah, is that south elevation?
It's the north, I believe.
North elevation, and there's 4 of them?
Yep.
4 of them be dropped by 18 inches to 12. Did I say 12 inches? And that, well, the first comment is that the board finds this a handsome design, well detailed, and well colored, and well designed. And then a comment regarding the lowering of independent awnings above the entry doors, and that the landscape, the third comment would be the landscape plan be incorporated into the final working drawing package.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
It seems that, I feel like we left out a couple things. Did you add the rock?
Is that non-binding, or shall we find that?
Fine.
Find it, okay, so that the rock lintel above the garage wood garbage, trash enclosure be eliminated, as it is too long to be convincing as a rock lintel.
Is that clear enough for staff?
Just to confirm, you had one other comment about the sconces. Would that be non-binding as well?
I don't know how to handle that. I don't know how, I don't want this to be hung up.
Yeah. I mean, at some level, we have to trust the electrical engineer's opinion of the voltage.
Well, as we've discussed, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be on the agenda for sure, and set appropriately.
Non-binding on those.
We won't include that in the motion.
That's correct.
So I just want to make sure we're clear. So the lintel across where the trash enclosure is, that it really doesn't extend beyond where the wood from the trash enclosure, the top doors. Okay. And that's only for that one side and not the other side?
So
Okay.
that's as shown on the south elevation.
Approval of the second.
Okay. Can we read that back?
Yes, thank you. So I have that the motion is for final approval with the following comments. Number 1, the board finds this to be a handsome design, which is well detailed and well colored. Number 2, the 4 independent awnings above the entry doors on the north elevation shall be dropped by 12 inches. Number 3, the landscape plan shall be incorporated into the final approval drawings. And number 4, I have that the rock lintel above the trash enclosure shall be eliminated as it's too long to be convincing enough to be a rock lintel.
Mary, trash enclosure doors.
All right, so trash enclosure doors.
As shown on the south elevation.
Okay, thanks.
Does that sound good to everybody?
I'm sorry, one last clarifying question. Did that include all the awnings to drop 12 inches?
It's the 4 on the north elevation.
The 4.
Yes.
Okay, let's vote, please.
All right, I'll start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good to finally see everyone in person again.
And we do need to announce the appeal process, so this project may be appealed by following the instructions shown on screen within 10 calendar days.
Thank you, Chair Moore.
And with that, we can adjourn our April 4th meeting. Thank you,
Thank you all.
everybody.